Vecron Solis stepped off the transport ship and took his first breath of human air. It smelled like grass and soil and something sweet that he could not name. The Zelthari historian looked around at the colony called New Montana, and he felt a deep sense of pity for the creatures who lived here. The humans had built their little town in a valley between green hills. There were white houses with red roofs. There were fields of golden wheat that moved like water in the wind. Children ran through the streets, laughing and chasing each other. It was all so simple, so naive. Vecron had traveled across the galaxy for 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species burn their own worlds in nuclear fire. And now the Galactic Council had sent him to study these humans, these young creatures who had only discovered space travel 3 centuries ago. He already knew what he would write in his report. The humans were soft. They were emotional. They built schools and planted flowers while the galaxy around them grew dark with danger. They had no idea what was coming for them. A human male approached Vecron with a smile on his face. He was tall, with short brown hair, and eyes the color of the sky above them. He wore a simple uniform with a badge that said, Colonial Defense Force. You must be the Zelthari observer, the human said. He extended his hand, a greeting gesture that Vecron had studied. I'm Jack Morrison, commander of the Defense Force here. Welcome to New Montana. Vecron shook the hand. Human skin was warm and dry. Thank you, Commander. I am Vecron Solis. I will be staying for several months to study your colony. Study away, Jack said with an easy laugh. Not much to see here, I'm afraid. Just farmers and families trying to build something good. That was exactly the problem, Vecron thought. These humans did not understand that the galaxy did not care about good. The galaxy was cold and cruel and hungry. Over the next few days, Vecron walked through the colony and took notes. He visited the school where young humans learned mathematics and history and art. He watched farmers tend their crops with care and patience. He saw doctors treat the sick and builders raise new homes. The humans were always busy, always working, but they also stopped to talk with each other, to share meals, to laugh at jokes that Vecron did not understand. They seemed happy in a way that confused him. One evening, Commander Morrison invited Vecron to dinner at his home. The historian accepted, curious to see how humans lived in their private spaces. Jack's house was small but warm. There were pictures on the walls showing smiling faces. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes greeted Vecron at the door. This is my wife, Maria, Jack said, and somewhere around here is our daughter. A small human child ran into the room. She had her father's eyes and her mother's hair. She stopped when she saw Vecron and stared at him with open curiosity. Are you a lizard? She asked. Katie, Maria said quickly. That's not polite. But Vecron found himself making a sound that was close to laughter. I am a Zelthari, he told the child. We have scales like your lizards, but we are quite different. I come from a world very far from here. Katie's eyes went wide. How far? Many thousands of light years. What's it like there? Vecron paused. His homeworld was old and tired. The skies were gray with pollution from ancient wars. The cities were cold and efficient. There were no children running in the streets. No families eating dinner together. His people had forgotten how to be happy long ago. It is different, he said finally. They sat down to eat. Maria had prepared something called roast chicken, with vegetables from their garden. Vecron could not eat human food, but he had brought his own supplies. He sat with them anyway, watching this strange little family share their meal. Katie asked him question after question. What did stars look like from his world? Did he have a family? Did his people have pets? Did he like music? You ask many questions, Vecron said. She's curious about everything, Jack said with pride in his voice. Can't stop her from learning. After dinner, Katie fell asleep on the couch while the adults talked. Maria covered her with a blanket and smiled at her daughter with so much love that Vecron felt uncomfortable looking at it. She wants to be an explorer when she grows up, Maria said softly. She wants to see all the stars. The galaxy can be dangerous, Vecron said. Jack nodded slowly. We know. But we can't let fear stop us from dreaming, can we? What kind of life would that be? Vecran had no answer for this. Later that night, he returned to his quarters and opened his journal. He began to write his observations. The humans of New Montana are as I expected. They are emotional and naive. They build their homes in the open, with no thought to defense. They let their children run free, with no fear of what might take them. They plant trees that will take decades to grow, as if they believe they will still be here to see them. He paused, his stylus hovering over the page. They are soft creatures. They have never known real war, real loss, real fear. When danger comes, and it will come, they will break like glass. They will run, or they will surrender. This is the way of weak species. He saved the entry and closed his journal. The next morning, he walked through the colony again. He saw Dr. Lisa Huang, the medical officer, teaching a class of young people about first aid. He saw Danny, a schoolteacher, helping students build a small robot for a science project. He saw old people sitting in the sun, playing games and telling stories. Everyone smiled at Vecran as he passed. They waved and said hello. They asked if he needed anything, if he was comfortable, if he was enjoying his stay. It was exhausting. That evening, he stood on a hill above the colony and watched the sun set over the wheat fields. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. The lights in the houses came on one by one, warm and yellow against the growing dark. It was beautiful, he admitted to himself. These humans had built something beautiful here, but beauty did not stop bullets. Kindness did not turn away warships. Love did not protect you from those who saw you as prey. Vecran looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the black space between worlds, hungry eyes were watching. He could feel it in his old bones. Danger was coming, and when it arrived, these soft, smiling humans would learn the truth about the galaxy. He almost felt sorry for them. 3 weeks passed on New Montana. Vecran had fallen into a routine. He woke early, walked through the colony, took notes, and returned to his quarters to write. The humans continued to smile at him. They continued to build and farm and laugh. Nothing changed. Then the sky fell. It was a quiet morning when the alarms began. Vecran was in the market square, watching farmers sell vegetables to families. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through the peaceful air like a knife. People stopped what they were doing. They looked up, and Vecran looked up with them. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace above the planet, dozens of them. They were black and twisted, covered in sharp angles and cruel spikes. Vecran recognized them immediately, and his blood turned to ice. The Kethvori had come. The Kethvori were insects. They were tall and thin, with black shells and many legs. They had no eyes that other species could see, but they could sense prey from across a room. They did not build or create or dream. They only took. They were raiders, slavers, monsters who harvested other species like crops. Vecran had seen their work before: empty cities, chains and cages, bones picked clean. He began to run toward the Zelthari delegation quarters. His colleagues would be preparing to evacuate. Their ship was fast. They could escape before the slaughter began. But then the broadcast started. Every screen in the colony lit up with the same image. A Kethvori commander, its mandibles clicking as it spoke in the common galactic language. "Humans of this world," the creature said, "you are now property of the Kethvori collective. Surrender your population within 1 hour. Any resistance will result in orbital bombardment. Your children will make excellent servants. Your elderly will feed our young. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The screens went dark. Vecran stood frozen in the street. Around him, humans stared at each other in shock. Some women grabbed their children and held them close. Some men stood with clenched fists, not knowing what to do. This was the end, Vecran thought. He had seen it 100 times before. The panic would come next. Then the crying. Then the surrender. Every species broke when the Kethvori came. Every single one. He started moving toward his ship again. There was nothing he could do here. Nothing anyone could do. Then a voice came over the colony speakers. It was calm and steady and familiar. "This is Commander Jack Morrison." Vekran stopped. All civilians, please proceed to the underground bunkers. Families with children and elderly go first. Move quickly, but do not panic. Defense Force personnel, report to your stations immediately. There was a pause. When Jack spoke again, his voice was different. It was still calm, but there was something underneath it. Something hard. They came for our families. That was their mistake. The broadcast ended. Vekran expected chaos. He expected screaming and running and tears. What he saw instead made him stand still in disbelief. The humans moved. They moved with speed and purpose, like a machine coming to life. Mothers picked up their children and walked quickly toward the bunker entrances. Fathers kissed their families goodbye and turned toward the armory. Old people who could barely walk helped even older people into wheelchairs and pushed them toward safety. No one screamed. No one ran in blind panic. They had all become something else in an instant. Vekran saw Danny, the kind schoolteacher who built robots with children. Danny was no longer smiling. He was checking a rifle with hands that did not shake. When he saw Vekran watching, he nodded once. "You should get to shelter," Danny said. His voice was flat. "It's going to get ugly." "You cannot fight them," Vekran said. "The Kethvori have never been defeated in ground combat. They will kill you all." Danny looked at him for a long moment. "Maybe," he said. "But they're not taking our kids." He turned and walked toward the eastern wall. Vekran saw Dr. Lisa Huang outside the medical building, directing nurses and volunteers. They were moving supplies into the basement, setting up surgery tables, preparing for mass casualties. "Dr. Huang," Vekran called out, "you must evacuate. You are not a soldier." Lisa paused, just long enough to look at him. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "Everyone's a soldier now," she said. "Can you hold a bandage?" When Vekran did not answer, she went back to work. He walked through the streets in a daze. Everywhere he looked, the transformation continued. A baker was sharpening knives. A mechanic was turning a farm tractor into something with armor plates. A grandmother was teaching young people how to make explosive devices from household chemicals. Where had they learned this? How did they know what to do? Near the armory, Vekran saw a young man named Kyle. He had met Kyle a week ago at a community dinner. Kyle was 22 years old. He worked in the wheat fields. His wife, Emma, was pregnant with their first child. Now Kyle was putting on body armor. His hands moved with practiced ease, checking straps and buckles. His face was empty of expression, but his jaw was tight. Emma stood beside him, her hand on her swollen belly. She was not crying. She kissed Kyle's cheek and whispered something in his ear. "Come back to us," Vekran heard her say. Kyle touched her face gently. "Always," he said. Then he picked up his rifle and walked toward the defense line without looking back. Vekran found the Zelthari delegation preparing their shuttle for emergency departure. His colleagues waved him over urgently. "We must leave now," one of them said. "The Kethvori will begin their assault within the hour. Anyone still on the surface will die." When the Enbird. "We must leave now." Vekran looked back at the colony. He could see humans taking positions along the walls. He could see them digging trenches and setting traps. He could see children being led into bunkers by parents who tried to smile for them. "I am staying," he heard himself say. His colleagues stared at him like he had gone mad. "The humans will fall," one said. "They always fall. Every species falls." Perhaps," Vekran said. "But I need to see what happens. I need to understand." The shuttle left without him. Vekran watched it rise into the sky and disappear into hyperspace. He was alone now, trapped on a world that would soon burn. He made his way to an observation bunker near the command center. Commander Morrison was there, giving orders to his officers. He saw Vekran enter and nodded briefly. "Thought you would have left with your people," Jack said. "I am a historian. I record what I see." Jack smiled. But it was not the warm smile from dinner 3 weeks ago. It was the smile of a man who had accepted something terrible. "Then watch closely," he said. You're about to see what humans do when you threaten our children." Above them, the Kethvori fleet began to descend. Drop ships filled the sky like black rain. The ground shook with the sound of their approach. And in the colony of New Montana, 10,000 humans prepared to show the galaxy what they were really made of. The Kethvori landed in waves. Their dropships crashed down in the fields outside the colony, crushing the golden wheat under their weight. Thousands of warriors poured out, their black shells gleaming in the morning light. They carried weapons that could cut through metal. They moved with the speed and hunger of predators who had never known defeat. They expected prey. They expected fear. They expected the soft little humans to run and hide and beg for mercy. They were wrong. Vecron watched from the observation bunker as the first wave advanced toward the eastern wall. The Kethvori moved with confidence, their mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among their kind. They had done this 1,000 times before. They knew how it would end. The humans waited in silence. They did not fire. They did not move. The Kethvori reached the outer markers. Still, the humans waited. Then Commander Morrison's voice came over the radio. One word. Now. The ground exploded. Mines buried in the wheat fields tore through the Kethvori ranks. Fire and metal and screaming filled the air. Before the survivors could react, the humans opened fire from the walls. It was not random shooting. It was precise and coordinated and deadly. Every bullet found its target. Every Kethvori that fell was replaced by another. But the humans did not stop. They fired and reloaded and fired again. Vecran had never seen anything like it. The Zelthari had fought wars, but their soldiers followed orders with cold efficiency. These humans were different. They fought with something that burned in their eyes. They fought like every bullet was personal. The first wave broke. The Kethvori retreated, leaving hundreds of bodies in the ruined fields. But they came again. And again. And again. By midday, the eastern wall had fallen. The Kethvori pushed into the colony streets, and the real nightmare began. Vecron watched through camera feeds as the battle moved through the town. Humans fought from every window, every rooftop, every doorway. When they ran out of bullets, they used knives. When they ran out of knives, they used their hands. He saw a group of farmers hold a bridge for 6 hours against a force 10 times their size. They died one by one, but they did not retreat. The last man standing, an old farmer named Henry, detonated explosives strapped to his chest. When the Kethvori finally reached him, he took 30 of them with him. He saw Dr. Lisa Huang operating on wounded soldiers in a basement, while the building above her burned. When a Kethvori warrior broke through the door, she killed it with a surgical knife, before returning to her patient. Her hands never stopped moving. He saw Danny, the school teacher, leading a group of teenagers through enemy lines to rescue children trapped in a collapsed bunker. Danny took 3 bullets during the mission. He did not stop until every child was safe. Then he collapsed. He died with a smile on his face. But the thing that haunted Vecran most came on the second day. He was monitoring communications when he heard the report. Bunker 7 had been hit by orbital fire. Direct strike. No survivors. He knew what Bunker 7 was. It was where Emma had been sent, Kyle's pregnant wife. He switched camera feeds until he found Kyle. The young man was crouched behind a burned-out vehicle, reloading his rifle. A soldier ran up to him and said something. Vecran could not hear the words, but he saw Kyle's face. For a moment, nothing happened. Kyle just stared at the soldier who had delivered the news. His hands stopped moving. His whole body went still. Vecran expected him to break, to scream, to cry. That was what any sane creature would do. Kyle did not scream. He did not cry. His face simply emptied. Every emotion, every trace of the kind young man who worked in the wheat fields, disappeared. What remained was something that made Vecran's scales go cold. Kyle finished reloading his rifle. He stood up. He checked his grenades. Then he started walking toward the enemy lines. "Kyle!" someone shouted. "Kyle, stop!" He did not stop. He did not run. He just walked, straight and steady, toward the Kethvori position. They shot at him. He took a hit in the shoulder and kept walking. He raised his rifle and started firing. His aim was perfect. Every shot killed. When he reached the enemy position, he was out of ammunition. He pulled the pins on all his grenades at once. The explosion lit up the street. When the smoke cleared, Kyle was gone. So were the 47 HFY soldiers in that sector. Vecron sat in the observation bunker and could not move. He had seen death before. He had seen war before. But he had never seen anything like the look on Kyle's face in those final moments. It was not anger. It was not despair. It was something beyond both. It was a fury so pure and absolute that it had burned away everything else. The HFY kept coming. The humans kept dying. But they did not break. They did not surrender. Every street became a trap. Every building became a fortress. Every human became a weapon. By the end of the second day, the HFY had taken half the colony. But they had paid for every meter with blood. Their commanders were confused. Their warriors were afraid for the first time in their lives. These humans were supposed to be soft. They were supposed to be easy prey. Instead, they fought like demons. They fought like creatures with nothing left to lose. Commander Morrison was wounded in the fighting. A HFY blade had cut deep into his side, but he refused to leave the command center. He stood over the tactical display, blood soaking through his bandages, and directed the defense. "Sir, you need medical attention," an officer said. Jack shook his head. "Not until it's over. Not until they're all safe." Vecron approached him carefully. "Commander, why do you keep fighting? You cannot win. Your people are dying." Jack looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "We were never fighting to win." Then why? We're fighting to hurt them. We're fighting to make them bleed so badly that they never come back. We're fighting so that the next colony, the next world, the next group of kids playing in the streets will be safe." He turned back to the display. "They came for our families. Now they learn what that means." That night, the sky lit up with new lights. Ships dropping out of hyperspace. Many ships. For a moment, Vecron thought it was more HFY. Then he saw the markings on the vessels. Terran Navy. The human fleet had arrived, and hell was coming with them. The Terran fleet cut through the darkness of space like a blade. 20 warships, led by the carrier Resolute, under the command of Admiral Beth Lawson. They had traveled 3 days at maximum speed, burning out engines and pushing their crews to the limit. They had come because of one message: HFY attacking New Montana, civilians under siege, send everyone. The HFY fleet turned to meet them. 40 warships against 20. The insects clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. They still had the numbers. They would destroy these human reinforcements and finish harvesting the colony. Admiral Lawson stood on the bridge of the Resolute and studied the enemy formation. She was 53 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face made of stone. She had fought the HFY before, 20 years ago. She had seen what they did to the people they captured. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, "enemy fleet is moving to intercept. They outnumber us 2-1. "I can count," Beth said calmly. "Orders." She was quiet for a moment. Then she opened a channel to her entire fleet. "All ships. This is Admiral Lawson. Below us is a colony of 10,000 people. Farmers, teachers, children. For 3 days, they have held against these monsters with nothing but rifles and courage. They are waiting for us." She paused. "The HFY came here to take human children and put them in chains. They came to turn our families into food and slaves. There will be no prisoners today. There will be no mercy. We will destroy every ship, kill every enemy, and burn their fleet so completely that the HFY will tell stories about this day for 1,000 years." Her voice hardened. "All ships. Attack pattern Omega. No quarter." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The Terran ships did not fight like a fleet. They fought like wolves. They moved with a coordination that should have been impossible, each vessel covering the others, exploiting every weakness in the Kethvori formation. Vecron watched from the ground, monitoring the space battle on surviving sensors. He saw human fighters swarm around the Kethvori capital ships like angry insects. He saw destroyers make suicide runs against enemy weapon systems, clearing paths for the heavier cruisers. The Kethvori were not prepared for this. They were used to enemies who retreated, who tried to survive. These humans did not care about survival. They cared only about destruction. Within 2 hours, the Kethvori fleet was in chaos. 12 of their ships were burning. Their formation had collapsed. Their admiral ordered a retreat. Admiral Lawson's response was broadcast on all frequencies. Negative. You don't get to leave. Negative. 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 The Terran ships pursued. Every Kethvori vessel that tried to flee was hunted down and destroyed. The human pilots flew with reckless precision, pushing their craft beyond all safety limits. Some of them died in the pursuit. They did not stop. One Kethvori commander transmitted a surrender request. He offered to withdraw and never return. He offered prisoners. He offered anything. Admiral Lawson did not even respond. Her ships continued firing until his vessel exploded. Another commander tried to send a message to the Kethvori homeworld, warning them of what had happened. A Terran frigate intercepted the transmission and destroyed the ship before the message could be completed. By the 4th hour, there were no Kethvori ships left. Not one. On the ground, the tide turned just as completely. Marine dropships landed in waves around the colony. Fresh troops poured out, armed with heavy weapons and burning with the same fury that had driven the colonists. They had seen the reports. They knew what had happened here. They knew about the bunkers hit by orbital fire. They knew about Kyle and Danny and the bridge that the farmers had held. They knew, and they were not in a forgiving mood. The Kethvori ground forces tried to regroup. They tried to use captured civilians as shields. When the first group of prisoners was brought forward, the Marine commander looked at them carefully. "Get down," he told the civilians over a speaker. They dropped. The Marines opened fire over their heads, cutting down the Kethvori behind them. Every single shot missed the humans. Every single shot hit the insects. Commander Morrison, still bleeding from his wounds, refused to be evacuated. He limped to the front lines and fought beside the fresh Marines. When a young soldier tried to take his place, Jack pushed him aside. "I started this fight," he said. "I'm going to finish it." The final battle lasted 6 hours. The Kethvori were pushed back, street by street, building by building. They had no escape route. Their fleet was gone. Their reinforcements would never arrive. Some of them tried to surrender. They dropped their weapons and raised their limbs in the universal gesture of submission. The Marines looked at them. They looked at the bodies of the colonists who had died over the past 3 days. They looked at the ruins of Bunker 7, where Kyle's wife and unborn child had died. The admiral said no quarter. A sergeant said quietly. No one argued. When it was over, not a single Kethvori remained alive on New Montana. Vecron emerged from the observation bunker as the sun rose on the 4th day. The colony was in ruins. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were filled with rubble and bodies. Smoke rose from a dozen fires that still burned, but the humans were still standing. He saw Commander Morrison sitting on a piece of concrete, getting his wounds properly treated for the first time. Maria was beside him, holding his hand. Katie sat on his other side, her face pressed against his arm. He saw Dr. Lisa Huang walking among the wounded, checking bandages, giving orders, refusing to rest. She had not slept in 3 days. She would not sleep for another 2. He saw the Marines helping colonists search through the rubble for survivors. Human soldiers who had fought with such terrible fury were now lifting debris with gentle hands, carrying injured civilians to safety, offering water to children who had just lost their parents. Admiral Lawson came down from orbit to survey the damage. She walked through the colony with her hands clasped behind her back, her face showing nothing. When she reached Commander Morrison, she stopped. "You held them for 3 days," she said. Jack looked up at her with exhausted eyes. "We had no choice. You had a choice. Every other species would have surrendered. Jack shook his head slowly. No, we really didn't have a choice. They came for our kids. Beth Lawson nodded once. She understood. The Keth Vori will send more ships when they realize this fleet is gone, she said. Let them come, Jack replied. And somehow, looking at the ruins around him, looking at the humans who refused to break even after everything they had lost, Vecran believed him. Let them come. Let the whole galaxy come. These soft, smiling humans had shown him something that he would never forget. They had shown him what happened when you threatened the things they loved. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species burn their own worlds. But he had never seen fury like this. Pure, absolute, unstoppable fury. And he knew, with terrible certainty, that the galaxy would learn to fear it. 6 months had passed since the battle. Vecran stood in the colony square of New Montana and watched the humans gather for the memorial service. The square had been rebuilt. New stones replaced the old ones that had been shattered by explosions. Fresh flowers bloomed in pots along the walkways. Children played near the fountain, their laughter mixing with the soft music from the speakers. If not for the monument in the center of the square, a person might never know that horror had visited this place. The monument was simple. A wall of black stone with names carved into it. 847 names. Farmers, teachers, doctors, soldiers, children. Kyle's name was there, and Emma's, with a small mark beside it indicating her unborn child. Danny was there too, the schoolteacher who had given his life to save children from a collapsed bunker. Henry, the old farmer who had held the bridge until the very end. Vecran read every name. He did not know most of them, but he remembered what they had done. He remembered what all of them had done. The colony was full of people today. Survivors and newcomers. Soldiers who had fought in the battle, and civilians who had come to pay respects. They stood in silence as Commander Morrison walked to the front of the gathering. Jack looked different now. His wounds had healed, but there were new lines on his face. His eyes carried a weight that had not been there before. He stood before the monument and took a long breath. 6 months ago, we were attacked, he said simply. They came for our families. They thought we would be easy prey. They thought we would run, or surrender, or break. He paused, looking at the names on the wall. We didn't. And a lot of good people paid the price for our defiance. People who should still be here, people who deserve to see their children grow up, to grow old with their loved ones, to live the peaceful lives they had built. His voice cracked slightly, but he continued. We don't celebrate today. We remember. We remember them. And we make them a promise. The same promise we made when the attack began. We will protect our families. We will protect our home. And anyone who threatens what we love will learn the same lesson these invaders learned. He stepped back. Maria took his hand. Katie placed flowers at the base of the monument. Vecran watched as, one by one, the colonists came forward to touch the names of those they had lost. Some cried. Some stood in silence. Some whispered words that only they and the dead could hear. Then, when the ceremony ended, something remarkable happened. The humans went back to work. They did not collapse into grief. They did not abandon the colony that had cost them so much. Instead, they picked up tools and returned to building. Farmers went to their fields. Builders raised new walls. Teachers opened their schools. Vecran found Dr. Lisa Huang at the medical center, training new nurses. She looked exhausted, but she smiled when she saw him. You stayed, she said. I needed to understand, Vecran replied. I think I finally do. Understand what? He was quiet for a moment. Where the fury comes from. I thought it was anger. I thought it was violence in your nature. But it is not, is it? Lisa shook her head slowly. No. It's love. That's all it's ever been. We love so deeply that when you threaten what we love, we become something else, something we don't even recognize in ourselves. Does it ever go away, the fury? She looked out the window at the rebuilt streets. The fury passes. The grief stays. But we keep going. We have to. For the ones who didn't make it. For the ones who still need us. That evening, Vecran sat with Commander Morrison on the hill overlooking the colony. The same hill where he had stood 6 months ago. Pitying the soft humans who did not understand the dangers of the galaxy. "You think differently about us now," Jack said. It was not a question. "Yes," Vecran admitted. "I was wrong about your species. Very wrong." Jack smiled tiredly. "Most people are. They see us smile and laugh and build schools and plant flowers. They think that's all we are. It is not. No, but it's the part we prefer, the part we choose to be. The other part, the fury, we keep locked away. We don't want it. We don't enjoy it. But when someone forces us to open that door..." He trailed off, looking at the stars. "I have to ask you something," Vecran said. "When you fought? When you killed? Did you feel anything? Guilt? Doubt?" Jack was quiet for a long time. "I felt everything," he said finally. "I felt the fear and the anger and the grief all at once. But under all of it, I felt something else. Something that told me this was right, that protecting my family, my people, was worth any price. Even the price of becoming a monster?" Jack turned to look at him. "I'm not a monster, Vecran. Monsters enjoy what they do. I hated every moment of it. But I would do it again. 1,000 times. Because the alternative was watching my daughter put in chains." Vecran nodded slowly. He finally understood. 10 years later, Vecran Solis published his account of the Battle of New Montana. It was titled, "The Fury of Humans." And it spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In his book, he wrote, "I have traveled among many species. I have seen empires, and armies, and weapons that could destroy worlds, but I have never seen anything more terrifying than a human defending their family. Other species fight for territory, for resources, for power. Humans fight for love, and that makes them unstoppable." He warned the galaxy about the quiet humans with their schools and farms, and laughing children. He warned them that this softness was not weakness. He warned them that underneath the kindness was something ancient and terrible, a fury that waited to be awakened. "Do not," he wrote, "make the mistake of thinking they are prey. They are not. They are patient. They are generous. They are forgiving. But there is a line that must never be crossed. Threaten their children, their families, their homes, and you will see the true face of humanity. And it will haunt you forever." The book became required reading in military academies across the galaxy. The Kethvori, when they finally learned what had happened to their fleet, did not send more ships. They avoided human space entirely, and they would continue to do so for 100 years. On a warm evening on the Zelthari homeworld, an old Vecran Solis woke from a nightmare. He sat up in bed, his scales damp with sweat, his heart's racing. He had dreamed of Kyle again, the young man walking toward the enemy lines with that empty face. The silence before the storm. The fury that had burned away everything human and left something pure and terrifying behind. Vecran got out of bed and walked to his window. The city lights of his homeworld stretched out before him, cold and efficient. There were no children playing in the streets, no families eating dinner together, no laughter. He thought about New Montana, about Katie Morrison, who was now a grown woman with children of her own, about the colony that had rebuilt itself into something even more beautiful than before, about the humans who smiled and farmed and taught and loved. They were still out there, building their peaceful worlds, still laughing, still dreaming, still hoping, and still carrying that terrible fury locked away in their hearts, waiting for anyone foolish enough to awaken it. Vecran closed his eyes and saw Kyle's face one last time. The silence, the walk, the explosion, it would haunt him forever. But perhaps, he thought, that was exactly as it should be. Perhaps the galaxy needed to remember what humans could become. Perhaps fear was the only thing that would keep the peace. He returned to bed, but he did not sleep. He lay in the darkness and listened to the silence of his world, and thought about the strange, terrifying, beautiful creatures called humans. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that the galaxy would never be the same.